Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhi Swadhyata Om Gati Gati Parasangati Bodhi Swadhyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhi Swadhyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhi Okay. We're on page 137. We're reading the stanza, page 137, from 60 stanzas of Reasoning by Aranyagarbhuna, where it reads, when any abode is found, afflictions with the deceitfulness of a poisonous snake seize hold of it. Whoever's mind lacks that bond will not be seized. Okay. It says that, when any abode here referring to the self-grasping ignorance viewing things as objectively real. When you have this feeling that things are objectively real, for example, let's say that, in this hall, there's no tiger. And so you start dozing off, and then you start dreaming of a tiger in this hall. So first, this ignorance, the sleep creates this perception of the tiger. And then when that is created, then your mind starts to react. So what makes the mind to react to this tiger? Okay, thinking dream tiger real, why should we have to run? Because the people who are so fond of tigers are there. They will not run away. You'll be very happy. What makes you run away?
Fear for your life.
Fear. What makes you have the fear?
Self-protection.
Okay, so if you could remember from what we have been discussing from the earlier, the self-grasping ignorance, how the dream creates the tiger, how dream creates the shopping malls, right? Once the shopping mall is created, some people, they don't like shopping at all. They feel so bored, and some people, they are so excited. Right? So what made some feel so bored and some feel so excited? And both sleep and both have the same dream, shopping malls, right? So who's seeing the shopping mall? Both. The one who's interested, the one who's not interested. Why the one who's interested, becomes so excited in the dream? Well, which of the two sees the shopping mall is real? Both. So both are mistaken, but one is excited. What additional factor is there?
So it makes them happy. Self-grasping.
Self-grasping is there.
Both?
In both cases. Self-grasping meaning that is so real.
Feeling.
Yes. One has a very pleasant feelings retrieved, seeing that there's there. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Krishna, inappropriate attention, seeing the mall as objectively desirable, exciting.
Yes. So what made you think? What made you think that this, the seeing the mall as objectively desirable, is arising in the second person, not in the first person? Why not? Okay, did you ever hear about something known as the self-grasping ignorance creates the scenario, the stage, then self-centered attitude is the actor starts acting there. Did you hear that before? Huh? You heard it, right? So therefore the point is that when the self-centered attitude, where the pleasant feeling comes, the self-centered attitude starts acting. When the pleasant feeling is not coming, then the self-centered attitude says, okay, it's very boring. Right? So the self-centered attitude, finally self-grasping ignorance creates the stage or creates the shopping mall. Then the self-centered attitude goes to pick up things. Oh, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like that. The actor is the self-centered attitude. So these two things, without the stage, without the shopping mall, right? You cannot say that I want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. So these two things should act together. And of the two, you can get rid of self-grasping ignorance or you can get rid of self-centered attitude. Finally, the point is to not to be in the hands of the deceit of the ignorance, not be in the hands of the deceit of the dream. So self-centered attitude, to get rid of that, you have to go till Buddhahood. But self-grasping ignorance is not necessary that you have to wait till Buddhahood. It can be got rid of earlier. So you can get rid of any of the two. So therefore, when you get rid of the self-grasping ignorance, the job is done. Then you will not be played by the ignorance. You will not become like a puppet of the self-grasping ignorance. Okay. So the point is that when you see things as object real, when any abode is found, any abode here meaning the abode of self-grasping ignorance. When you see things as object real with this self-grasping ignorance, then the afflictions with the deceitfulness of a poisonous snake, attachment, aversion, all these things will arise. They will seize you. They will seize. They will get hold of you, seize hold of it. Whoever's mind lacks that abode, who does not have this self-grasping ignorance, lacks that abode meaning, lacks that abode of the self-grasping ignorance, will not be seized by the afflictions. Afflictions will not ensnare you. You're getting it? In other words, all afflictions arise from self-grasping ignorance. This is the crux. It is said that when any abode, a reference point for the conception of true existence, meaning that seeing things as objectively real, seeing things as truly real, truly existent, is found, it is seized by the snake of the afflictions. Then you will be, afflictions will arise within you. Afterward, the same text says, in those whose minds have that abode, why would the afflictions, the great poisons, not arise? When you see things objectively real, then the afflictions arise. Okay, my question to you. When you see things as objectively real, do you agree with what has been written here? That so these two lines are coming from Arundhati text, 60 stanzas. So when you see things objectively real, is it necessary that the afflictions arise? Okay, the text says yes. And you are Arundhati's non-masterful participants, right? Okay, in those whose minds have that abode, meaning seeing things objectively real, seeing things as truly real, why would the afflictions, the great poisons, not arise? They will arise, they will invariably arise. Okay, let's say that you see the flower, and you see there's this objectively existent flower, this objectively existent beautiful flower, and someone says that, oh, this objectively existent hopeless flower or a fake flower, right? So then your reaction is very different. right? When you say that, oh, this is a beautiful flower, then you're saying the abode, seeing the object is object real, this will give rise to the attachment, seeing it as objectively beautiful. And then the other person seeing this as somebody who has seen much more beautiful flower than this, they will see this flower, this hopeless flower. So this as objectively undesirable flower, then the aversion arises. So aversion and attachment, both are afflictions. So these two are rooted to the seeing the flower as objectively real. That's fine. The next question is somebody who's not at all interested in flower. Right? Not at all interested in flower, very beautiful, attractive, desirable, whatever, not desirable, it doesn't matter. So look at the flower, see the flower, okay, right? Not as nice, not nice, it's okay, so neutral, right? So attachment, see the flowers objectively real, but no attachment, no aversion, that is neutral. So this is not affliction, right? Okay, so but Nagarjuna said that in those whose minds have that abode, what is that abode? Seeing the object as object real, seeing the flowers object real. So that, why would the afflictions, the great poisons, afflictions referring to great poisons of the mind, why would that not arise? Why the afflictions not arise? Okay, what is the answer? Afflictions arise, yes. Attachment? Huh? But it's neutral. No attachment, no aversion. So how can you say that attachment arises? Anyone? Ajila?
We had a very big discussion almost for 1 hour this morning
I see, on this topic.
on this
Wow.
on this particular thing, but I think the views have been very different.
Okay.
Yes.
So can I hear the different views? Yes, Izusila?
Krishna, it's definitely because even the neutral state of mind, the underlying ground is ignorance, and that is an affliction. Because
Say again.
say there's
In
no
neutral why?
attachment or no aversion in terms of the derivative afflictions,
Mm.
there is still self-grasping ignorance and inappropriate attention.
Okay, so let's
And
say,
the neutral,
let's say that you see the flowers object of real is ignorance. And then you're not interested in flower at all. Right? You're not interested in flower. Okay, who must be the owner of this flower? Pity, I feel compassion towards this person. So compassion grows. Is that affliction? There's no attachment, no aversion. Is it affliction?
it is an affliction.
Oh,
Krishna.
compassion is a
No, compassion is not an
compassion is
affliction.
virtue. Affliction is not virtuous.
Compassion is a virtue, but the person seeing the flower is objectively real, it's not tallying with the reality.
No, what I'm
of the
saying
flower.
is, oh, this flower. Who must have planted this flower? The person who planted the flower. May he see the may he become rich. Right? You have a positive aspiration. So that's compassion. There's love and affection. Is that non-virtuous? Is that affliction? It's not affliction. So which means that he did have the ignorance, seeing the flowers object real, but it's not necessary that afflictions should arise. So, but the text says that in those whose minds have that abode, why would the afflictions, like great poisons, not arise?
Because Krishna, for another argument, the Prasangika Madhyamika view would say that the minute you grasp at the selfhood of phenomena,
Yes,
the flower, you will have selfhood of person.
that's true.
And of course, that is an affliction because anything that doesn't tally with the reality is going to be an affliction, and it will inevitably give rise to misery, Krishna, because
No, that's fine. My question is, after this, when the compassion arises, is that compassion affliction? Is my question. Remember?
Keshila, same on the lines what Kavirila was saying, that when we define affliction as something which disturbs the state of the mind.
Yes.
So if the mind in the purest form, in the purest form is like not disturbed. But with the ignorance which does not tally with the reality, that peace, the true state of the nature of the mind gets disturbed.
That's true.
And that
So-
is why that is an affliction, because it does not tally with the reality.
So the question is,
That gets disturbed.
so after the ignorance, if compassion arises towards the one who planted them, so that compassion is
That is the
is-
second step, Keshava. With
Yeah.
the ignorance, with just the ignorance as seeing things as objectively real, that is an affliction. But
is not
then
the point. The
after
question
that,
is, with the ignorance, in those whose minds have that abode, which means that ignorance per se, whether that ignorance per se is affliction or not, this is not a question. When in those whose minds have that abode, why would the afflictions, the great poisons not arise out of that? Second stage, not the first. The first one, we already said that self-grasping ignorance is always affliction. This is the chief, this is the main prime affliction. This is what we all agree. So the question is, after this, attachment, aversion, then this middle, neutral thing coming. So with this neutral and the other mental states, should they all be affliction? It says that, why would afflictions, the great poisons, not arise? This is the question. Okay, what other views came up during your discussions? Anyone?
Keshava, the discussion was on the first part, that the ignorance is an affliction or not.
Okay, the affliction is whether or not there is the ignorance, whether or not there is affliction. Okay, so this is a very serious point. Very serious point. Answer is yes, but we have to know how yes. How yes? Once the idea is, as Bharadwaj very clearly indicated, affliction. We have to first define what affliction is. Affliction. Once we define this, and then see how affliction is. With affliction, you have loss of freedom. Affliction means loss of freedom. How? With affliction, the mental disturbance happens. By the very definition of affliction means where the mental state or mental factor, affliction to define affliction is a mental factor, the presence of which the mental factor whose function is to disturb the mind. Whose function is to disturb the mind. This is affliction. This is definition of affliction, right? So which means that the moment you are disturbed, nobody wants disturbance. Why we don't want disturbance? Yeah, disturbance happens means it is not in your hand. If it is not in your hand, you don't have the freedom. That is a loss of freedom. Loss of freedom is misery. So this is how we understand affliction should necessarily be, what disturbs you, and the presence of which binds you in samsara. That's fine. Next question is how the self-grasping ignorance, how that is affliction, right? How that is affliction. So this is extremely, extremely important part. So the answer is yes, it is affliction. Right? Okay, to make it very quick, the self-grasping ignorance, say, in the dream, you see a tiger, and you're so scared of tiger. And luckily, in the dream is such that between the tiger and you, there is the precipice. Let's say there's a huge precipice that I cannot jump. You can see the tiger, but the tiger cannot jump. So this is what you dream, right? Okay, I'm relieved that there's such a huge space there between two of us, and he cannot jump, right? I'm very relieved. Okay, so then you are not scared of the tiger now in the dream. Which is better? You have this dream, or you wake up? Huh? Wake up is better, right? Because if there is a real tiger there, and if there's the precipice, a big, huge precipice there, the tiger cannot jump towards you, cannot harm you. Well, this is one thing, this is reality. But in the dream, there's no tiger in the first place. No tiger there, and then you think that there's a tiger there, right? Your mind is fixed by that, right? Your mind is pulled by that object. Your mind is fixed. Your mind is not released to flow anywhere. You're getting it? Your mind is fixed by seeing this tiger there in the dream. There's no real tiger there. It's just your mental creation, and that pulled your mind there. That you pull your mind. And then say maybe the tiger may fly, right? Tiger may fly, who knows, right? Okay, so these things, somehow you see that the tiger is there, so your mind is always there. You cannot really stay relaxed, right? Actually, there's no tiger, but you don't have the relaxation. You don't have the freedom to stay relaxed. Why? Because of these perceptions. So this perception, which is not really there, this is what makes you not to stay in relaxed state. Right? So you have lost the state of relaxation because of this perception. This perception is created by your mind. So self-grasping ignorance creates things there which traps your mind. It traps your mind there. You have to look at it there, right? You have no freedom to look anywhere you like. You don't have freedom to stay freely. So that's a loss of freedom. Loss of freedom is misery. What made you not to have this freedom, leisure, have the relaxation is because of this seeing things as objective real. You getting it? Yes, Dipeshna?
Gishna, in the group discussion, I think we were trying to analyze the same situation because here there's a tiger, there's a fear.
And came a Buddha.
Not Buddha also, but we were like looking at a neutral state of mind where, experientially I feel there's no disturbance. Like, okay, in the dream, I'm seeing.
Okay, let's say you
can
don't.
you explain like with a neutral state of mind?
You don't care about a flower.
Yeah, something
flower, like that. A flower, it doesn't matter, and somebody brings up a bunch of flower.
Yeah.
Right?
Something very
So it's neutral. You're getting it? Okay.
So in that state of
In
mind,
that state, how is that still?
ignorance is an affliction
Yes.
which disturbs the mind.
Okay. Let's say that still in the dream, right? You are not interested in flower at all, whether in dream, outside dream, whatever. And then I bring a bunch of flower on your birthday, right? And you are not interested, and you smile. It's not a real smile. You have no interest. And what is this? What is the answer? Flower. Your mind is trapped by this. You're getting it? Your mind is trapped by this object. Why should you be trapped by this object? There's no flower there. It's just a mental creation. It's just a dream. But you're trapped. Your mind is trapped. Your mind is trapped. Trapped means that your mind, when your mind is trapped there, your mind cannot relax freely the way you like. That is trapped. Right? You cannot relax in a free way. So, loss of relaxation, loss of the ease is because of this seeing the flower as objectively real, not the dream flower as a real flower. You getting it? Okay. So this, to really get a feel of this, it is very important to get a feel of emptiness. Only if you get a feel of emptiness, this will make sense. Otherwise, there's a flower. After all, dream flower is very different. There's a flower there. Still, you will say this. Right? Only if you realize that even the real flower is also like a dream. This is all coming from a mind, not really different object. Only if you realize that what we're discussing here will make sense. Right? Okay. Yet, I would suggest that, say for example, we have Gijala here, and later on you meet with any other, so say the learned scholars, this is my qualification, right? You can ask these questions to them, right? In what way the self-grasping ignorance is attachment? No, it's affliction, right? So these are things that you can ask others. And of course, the point is, we must try to get the experience of some experience of what emptiness is, right? So without that, however much, some people even intellectually you get something, with the sharpness of the intellectual skill, they can feel that, okay, that makes sense. But then in most of the people, like 80% of people, if you get a real feel of what emptiness is, how things come into being by mind, nothing really from the object, only then this makes sense. Okay. Okay, now with this, now the point is that the question which we raise, which are asked here, say look at the flower, and then they, okay, I'm not interested in the flower, whether it's good, bad, whatever, I'm not interested in it, I'm no attachment, no aversion, so it's mind neutral, and then you switch off to the one who planted the flower, or I feel compassion towards him. That is virtuous, right? That's virtuous. But here you see that the mind has shifted its object from the flower to the person, right? And then from the person, you can shift to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you can shift to the Buddha, you can shift to another master scholars. Your mind shifts always, it shifts the object always. The moment it shifts the object, then it's a different story. We're talking about the mind directed to the flower, not interested whether it's desirable, undesirable, whatever, not interested in it. So the ignorance is there, whether you're interested in not interested, still the ignorance is there, seeing the flowers object real. And then the attachment doesn't arise, aversion doesn't arise. But the text says that why would the afflictions, the great poisons, not arise if you have the report of seeing the flowers object real? So what happens if you continue to look at it? If you switch, that's a different story. If you continue to look at it, no attachment, no aversion, but the ignorance continues. Seeing the flower as object real, that continues. That is the ignorance. Ignorance is again an affliction, right? So therefore the ignorance continues. So this is what we learn here. Okay, now we'll continue reading this. This is page 137, after the second indented part. This is a sublime assertion of Nagarjuna. To make a connection with the last two lines is as follows. The last two lines, in those whose minds have that abode, why would the afflictions, the great poison, not arise? Okay, even though, let's correct the translation. Let's make it like that. Instead of even though, it says if one observes, rather than observing, if one observes the nature of forms, if one observes, instead of nature, you make it intrinsicality. Intrinsicality. If one observes, or if one views, observes or view, if one views the intrinsicality of forms and so forth, then add this word, even though one wishes to abandon the afflictions, even though one wishes to abandon the afflictions, even though one wishes to abandon afflictions, it is not possible to abandon the afflictions. It is not possible to abandon the afflictions. It is there in the end. You getting it? Okay. So the point is that, this is a sublime assertion by Nagarjuna to make a connection with the last two lines, that if one views the intrinsicality of forms and so forth, meaning that the physical form, the flower and so forth, if one views that as intrinsically real, objectively real, right? As long as you see there's objectively real, even though you want to abandon the afflictions, you cannot. Afflictions will continue, right? It is not possible to abandon the afflictions. Also, the later commentary says, if it is observed or if it is viewed to be a thing here referring to the objectively existing thing. If it is viewed or if it is observed to be a thing, objectively existing thing, objectively in bracket. If it is viewed as an objectively existing thing, the infinite afflictions such as attachment and so forth definitely arise without being counteracted. They will surely arise. Why? When that thing, this is the change this accord instead of accord, make it when that thing appeals. When that thing appeals the mind, at that time it is difficult to counteract the attachment, which follows that. Whereas if it does not accord, if it does not appeal the mind, at that time it is difficult to avert anger and spite. You're getting it? So this, the translation needs to be made more. Okay, so the point is that when things are seen as objectively real, then the afflictions cannot be, even though you want to abandon the afflictions, you cannot abandon the afflictions. Why? Because when you see things as objectively real, then you will see that thing either as appealing or not as not appealing. If you see this thing as appealing, attachment arises. If the thing is not appealing to the mind, then the aversion arises, right? And you will come with the third alternative. That is, that what if it is neither appealing nor non-appealing, right? Okay, so it says here, it is said in the commentary that even if an object is neither attractive nor unattractive, right? Attractive, ignorance is produced, then the ignorance continues. Because you continue to see the object as object real. Ignorance is produced. If the conception that the object is established by way of its own character, okay, this is very important. Oftentimes, Lama Tsongkhapa uses the phrase, the object is established, if you view the object to be established by way of its own character, by way of its own characteristics, or so by way of its own character, or viewed to be existing from its own side, from its own character, all these we have to learn. Which means that when things appear as objectively real, character operates in the continuum. When this misconception of seeing things objectively real is operating with your mind, even if neither of the two, attachment, hatred, or aversion arises, it is asserted to operate. It is say the translation. It is asserted. The perpetuation of the nature of the confusion, the nature of the ignorance, is asserted the perpetuation of the nature of the ignorance. Which means that even though attachment, aversion, any of these two does not arise, but the nature of the ignorance will continue. Nature of ignorance meaning, first one is ignorance, and the next moment, what arises? Ignorance. That ignorance and the first moment ignorance, these two are similar in nature. So the ignorance nature will continue. Okay, a mind that's an observed object is an abode in sum. So abode here referring to the seeing things as object real. A mind that is an observed object. Observed object, observed object meaning that say, okay, this is one thing that we have to, we can't, say the text, the original Sanskrit and original Tibetan, and it is not every time so precisely clear, no. Yeah, right? Say some wordings, from the wordings, how the wordings are put, from there you have to, oftentimes you have to interpret. You not really interpret, you have to sense what it means in this context. So here, when you say observe, for example, in the dream, say a chocolate is created, or you dream of a chocolate. So that's a dream chocolate. And then, yes, I saw a chocolate. When you say I saw a chocolate in the dream, which means that, okay, you are you do not say that I saw a real chocolate, I saw the dream chocolate as a real chocolate. You do not say this. You just said, I saw a chocolate in the dream, I saw a chocolate, right? So when you are from the state of the waking, from the waking state point of view, okay, you saw chocolate in the dream, that is mistaken. You're getting it? So observe the object. Oftentimes, observe means that you see something solidified. You observe a solidified object. So that refers to the objectification. Objectification, seeing things as objectively real. Okay. Oftentimes, when it's seen as negative, when it is seen as negative in the next one, a mind that has no observed object is an abode in some. Right? Abode there, we refer to what? Self-grasping ignorance, viewing things objectively real. So now this abode here, it is referred to the, say, engaging bodhisattva deeds. Bodhisattva is the way of life, guided Bodhisattva's way of life. So what is that abode? In this text, Bodhisattva's, the Shantidev's text, it says observed object, meaning objectified object. Okay, in a mind separated from emptiness, ceased, though ceased. Though in bracket will be helpful. If you say though ceased, they are produced again. In a mind, if you, okay, this is what we have already studied earlier, right? Say, what we said is that, okay, let's say that somebody is diabetic, and one is so addicted to what? Sugar or Coca-Cola or Rasmalai or, okay, let's say Rasmalai, right? Rasmalai. So you're so fond of Rasmalai, and yet you are very diabetic. On your table, a bunch of diabetic medicines and Rasmalai next to it. Yeah, that happens to many people. Right? I have a friend. The morning, the first ritual is to put the stack of the medicines and Coca-Cola there on the other side. Right? And what is this medicine? This is for diabetic. What is this medicine? The other one, diabetic. What is the other one? This is the allopathic version of diabetic medicine. What is the other one? This is the what is that? Homeopathic. Well, the third one, this is Ayurvedic. Right? All different kinds of that punch. And on the other hand, this Coca-Cola. What's Coca-Cola? Never mind. With this, when I drink this, I take medicine, it's been nullified. Right? This is there. I've seen with my own eyes. So what I'm saying is that okay, now with this, and slowly what happens with sugar? Right, you keep doing this for like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Then the effect of the medicines will go down, and slowly the indications come, like the tips of your fingers, they become black. You know that? Huh? Yes, severe diabetics, right? And then slowly they will turn into sore, right? And then you treat them. They will not go away, and then your job is to amputate. Right? So now this can happen, right? You have to amputate your limbs. Oh, it's very dangerous. Okay, now henceforth no Coca-Cola. With the Coca-Cola, then I have to amputate this, with the Coca-Cola. The more you reflect on this, then what happens? Slowly, that feeling that is very bad, is poison. You'll be enriched. Your mind will be filled with this information, and that slowly aversion will build. Aversion will be built towards the Coca-Cola. The next time you see koala, this is how things are dependent and originated. Even addiction can be undone through this principle. The more you are mentally put with the information and the feeling, unpleasant feeling towards Coca-Cola, the more you implant it skillfully, then slowly it will become very stable experience, unpleasant experience, the moment you interact with the Coca-Cola. So this is how we can, undo the habits, bad habits. Okay. So there what happens is that you are, say, the attachment to the Coca-Cola slowly subsides. Okay, then slowly these black parts, they disappear, right, over 1 2 years. And then you feel comfortable. Again, your friends come who are so addicted to rasmalai, they come. Okay, try it once. Try it once, and slowly the early experience will be retrieved. Pleasant feeling will be retrieved. You getting it? So although you successfully subsided addiction to the rasmalai for some time, but then because that the root is not cut, they can once again come back. Likewise, it says, in a mind separate from emptiness, if the emptiness experience is not stable, then all those ceased, meaning the negative emotions, they are ceased. They will come again, they will produce again, they can come back again. Like the absorption without discrimination, which we discussed, you remember, that in the meditative experience, you meditate on what is known as the meditative concentration with discrimination, without discrimination. And very subtle meditative experience where with discrimination, because it's mind. Because the mind, it should have discrimination as one of the mental factors. Without discrimination, because it's like, say, the mind has become so subtle that you don't see any signs that there's mind there. It's so subtle, right? So therefore, it is described as without discrimination. But so which means that all the gross mind subside for so long. But then, say, the moment you take the next birth, again the gross minds can come back. Like absorption without discrimination, where the very gross discriminations can once again come back. In regard to this position, the commentaries on the thought of Aranagarjuna by these two masters, Acharya Chandrakirti, Buddha and the Buddha Parita, are not different, pertaining to identifying the afflictions. Afflictions, self-grasping ignorance, seeing things as objectively real. Seeing things as objectively real, this is affliction. And afflictions, it is not always given rise to by the ignorance pertaining to non-substantial reality. So this standpoint is something commonly accepted by Acharya Chandrakirti, Buddha and the Acharya Buddha Parita. Right? So this is something unique of the Prasangika. So look, these are very important studies. If we don't know these things, then we're so dedicated to Dharma. You spend so much of time in isolation, in meditation, and then even as a lay practitioner, you may be spending like 2 hours every day, 3 hours every day. So consistent with the practice. In fact, I know since my childhood, I know one gentleman who might be now, from my point of view, he might be like 10 years older than me. Now maybe 10 or 15 years older, maybe like 60, 65 today, right? Since he was like in his, I think, 20s, from there, the amount of the commitment, he's just the lay person and doing his the business, with the business and so forth. But how much time that he spent, in his practice, in his reading practice, say doing the sadhanas, minimum 3-4 hours every day. And when he's doing this, nobody can contact him. He's very strict with the timetable, right? Nobody can contact him, right? And he may delay even his food, lunch, dinner, whatever. So during that time, once he's there, nobody. 3-4 hours easily spent every day with such a punctuality, with such a the what do you call it? Say the enthusiasm, commitment, devotion, but without the wisdom of emptiness. If he or she does not have this wisdom of emptiness, then the productivity, right? Whether or not there's a cost effective, whether or not what you're doing is cost effective, right? This is where we need to reflect on. So if you study these, then you will be able to identify what I should be doing. If I do something, I should be doing something very productive, right? Okay, do not do this is one thing, right? If you don't feel the sense of urgency, then you may not do it. You know this, but you may not do it. The moment the sense of urgency comes to you, then I have to do it and do it very effectively because you know what they are. So to have such a very refined understanding, this is so precious. We are all very fortunate that we are a part of this study of Acharya Chandra, this text. Okay. Second last paragraph, page 137. Since the main point of the two knowledge here referring to two abhidharmas, right? What are the two abhidharmas? Abhidharma Samuchaya and Abhidharma Kosh. Okay. Abhidharma Samuchaya written by Arya Sangha and the Abhidharma Kosh written by Acharya Vasubandhu, right? Okay, meanwhile, don't confine yourself when you speak about Abhidharma, only these two as Abhidharma. Don't confine yourself to these two things, because if you go to the Theravada tradition, you see that there are many books on Abhidharma, right? And maintain an open mind. So what we study in Abhidharma Kosh and Abhidharma Samuchaya, if you are so well versed in these two Abhidharma, then you read any other Abhidharma, like Abhidharma of that you find in Theravada, the traditions. So the Chinese tradition is much more, because the Chinese tradition also came from Nalanda, and Tibetan tradition also came from Nalanda. So it's much more the same. There's not much difference in terms of identifying the basic trend of the philosophy, basic trend of the text used. They're much more the same. Now, whereas the difference can identifying the various texts. Difference can be there pertaining to the Theravadas and the Maya tradition. So therefore, if you know these things so well from the true Abhidharma, then reading the Abhidharma you find in Theravada, the subject matter is just the same. It's just the same. With these two Abhidharma, with this particularly Abhidharma Samuchaya by Arya Sangha, so there you can see many things additional of the Chittamantra philosophy, so which is not really present in Abhidharma Kosh as well as in the Theravada Abhidharma that you find in Theravada. Okay, Abhidharma, in other words, it simply means the text by the Buddha and the text by the very standard Indian masters, the text whose subject matter is primarily the wisdom. That is the meaning of Abhidharma, right? Okay, so it's not necessarily Abhidharma means only Abhidharma Samuchaya or Abhidharma Kosh. But when we speak about Abhidharma, in this context we have here, referring primarily to Abhidharma Kosh and Abhidharma Samuchaya. Okay. In fact, last night I was reading Abhidharma Samuchaya, visiting Abhidharma Samuchaya, because all the texts which we are, they are all somehow the basic trend, the psychology and so forth, they are based on Abhidharma Samuchaya. So last night I was reading Abhidharma Samuchaya, going to read once more. That'd be good. And Abhidharma Samuchaya, I'm not too sure whether it's in English. I'm not too sure. But Abhidharma Kosh maybe partly is available in English. Okay. Okay. Since the main point of the two knowledges, the two Abhidharma, is the intention to explain passing beyond sorrow by the mere part of the 16 attributes. Okay, now because what we're doing here is more into the philosophy. Although for say the Abhidhamma Kosh and Abhidhamma Samuchaya, particularly the Abhidhamma Samuchaya, we see that there are two aspects. And in fact all the teachings of the Buddha, they have two aspects. One is the philosophy side and the other the practice side. The practice, the main trend of practice, right? So compassion, bodhicitta, that produces generosity, morality, patience, enthusiasm. So these practice part is there. And then the wisdom side, emptiness. The wisdom side is there, philosophy part. So likewise, Abhidhamma Samuchaya, Abhidhamma Kosh also have the two sides, the wisdom side and the practice side. And the practice side, okay, all other aspects other than the philosophy, they are more common between not just common, this being accepted by almost all Buddhist philosophies, Buddhist philosophical schools, except for the wisdom, the philosophy side. Except for the philosophy, other aspects of what you find in Abhidhamma Samuchaya, they are accepted by the other philosophical schools, like Prasangika, Chittamatra, and the Svatana Madhyamika and so forth. But the philosophy side, and the Abhidhamma Samuchaya, it emphasizes on Chittamatra philosophy, right? So the philosophy will differ. Because it follows Chittamatra philosophy, now in terms of achieving Buddhahood, achieving Nirvana, right? Because of difference in the philosophy, then for Nirvana, what should we do? To eradicate afflictions, what should we meditate? So that will differ between Prasangika and Abhidhamma Kosh, true Abhidhamma. So true Abhidhamma, in other words, pertaining to what should we meditate in order to achieve Nirvana, in order to be free from suffering, then Prasangika and the rest of the Buddhist schools, they diverge. The rest of the Buddhist schools, and they fall in one group, they come into one group, they agree amongst themselves, whereas Prasangika differ from that. Okay. So, what to meditate in order to achieve Nirvana? So, true Abhidharma, how they present and what the Prasangika present is going to be very different. So, it says, since the main point of the true Abhidharma is the intention to explain passing beyond sorrow. What is that? Nirvana. Passing beyond sorrow. How? How to achieve that Nirvana? By the mere part of the 16 attributes. 16 attributes meaning the Four Noble Truths and the 16 divisions. 16 divisions of the 16 aspects. 16 aspects, on the basis of the gross philosophy, impermanence, so forth. The identification of the afflictions from the point of view of that part is also incomplete. So, identification of afflictions from the part of the true Abhidharma is incomplete because they identify afflictions only related to the ignorance pertaining to the autonomous substantial reality. They cannot identify the ignorance pertaining to the objective existence. Identification of the afflictions from the point of view of that part is also incomplete. From the point of view of the true Abhidharma is incomplete. In dependence on these explanations, pride and so forth can also be understood. Likewise, the pride. So attachment and so forth, already explained. Attachment can be gross and subtle. Gross, which are grounded on the ignorance pertaining to autonomous substantial reality. Subtle, referring to the not objectively, ignorance pertaining to the objective existence. So if this is with the attachment aversion, then the pride, then the doubt, and the distorted, the conception of the, so all the other afflictions, in dependence on these explanations, pride and so forth, the other afflictions also can be understood, meaning that other afflictions also, they are the subtle and the gross. The uncommon ignorance, the view of the transitory collection, and the view of the extremes are to be understood as being both acquired and innate. So, okay, so from this we see that the uncommon ignorance, the view of the transitory collection, the view of the peripheral collection, and the view of the extremes, are to be understood as being both acquired and innate. However, okay, so in other words, say that the view, the five wrong views, they can be innate and acquired both, right? And so acquired here, innate. So for example, say the viewing the self as objectively real can be innate and as well as acquired. What is innate? Innate, we all have this, seeing the self as objectively real. And then the local Buddhist schools try to reinforce that the self does exist objectively. That is the acquired, right? Whereas what they have spontaneously arising within them, yes, the self exists objectively real, that is innate. So, one. And then, say seeing the self as autonomous substantially real. That can be innate as well as acquired. And seeing the self as autonomous substantially real, as dissimilar and different from the five gates. Seeing the self as autonomous substantially real, which is different and dissimilar from the five gates. That is purely acquired, never innate. In other words, let's say that okay, my body is contaminated. Okay, fine, my body is still contaminated. My mind is also okay, not so good. My speech is also not so good. But there's the I, which is different from my body, which is very clean, and from my mind, from my speech, there's this I, which is different from this. And this I, which exists as, say, autonomous substantial real and different from the body, speech, and mind, right? There's such a self. So this conception of such a self, which is different from the body and the mind, that is purely acquired. It is never innate. Okay. Yes. Okay, let's see. However, fearing too many words I have not written about. I'm not writing in more detail here. This is what author said. Okay, we'll stop here for today. There's questions?
I have a question. So, is the object of observation and the object of appearance different? And if they are different, then experientially, how does the process work for sentient beings who are not in non-dual experience of emptiness? Like,
okay, first let's split the question into two. The first question is are the two things observed object of observation and object of appearance, are these two the same? This is the question. Are these two same? Means same. Okay, so this is the question. Answer is these two are different. Because let's say observed object, we said observed object, when you say this flower, right? This flower is objectively real. So what's the observed object?
Flower.
The flower. So the observed object is existent in this case. But it's not necessary that the observed object should be existent in all mind. It's not necessary. But in this case, seeing the flower is objectively real. So there, observed object is existent, the flower. And then what is the object for appearance? Object of appearance, say objectively, what appears to your mind? What appears to this eye consciousness? The flower appears. The flower's objective appearance, one. Objective existence flower also appears. So objective existence of flowers also objective appearance, right? Right? And the beautiful flower appears. There is also objective appearance. And the objectively existing beautiful flower also appears. There are so many objects of appearance. But the object of observation, observed object is the flower. You getting it? So in other words, the object of appearance, the observed object, in the case of this mind, seeing this flower to be objectively existent, observed object is existent, but the object of appearance may not be existent. The second part.
So if there is a valid mind, let's say looking at this
Yes,
flower,
yes.
so I'm not able to figure out in the way the mind actually functions, at which point, because in my mind, the object of appearance should always be mistaken. The object that's, the mind is mistaken in relation to the object of appearance.
Yes.
So the object of appearance should necessarily have dualistic
Yes, appearance.
So, in what way is the object of appearance appearing dualistically when I'm saying my observing object is just the basis, the established basis?
Okay, so
Like,
basically what we do is that, okay, this is more, one is linguistic, is more linguistic issue, one. Number two is more the logic, the psychology, epistemology, all are there. So what we should be doing is, and don't mix up your understanding of these words according to the natural English with how we are using, right? So the point is that don't throw away your understanding of these words according to how you understand in the natural English. Don't throw them away. This is very important. Meanwhile, emphasis should be on how do we understand the observed object in this context. We have to contextualize. How do you understand the object of appearance in this context? For example, say mistaken mind and the distorted mind. You getting it? So in the natural English, these two mean the same. What's the difference? But there is a concept which is very important, which we have to know. That concept must be expressed in words and in English language, because we are learning this English language. So it must be expressed in English language. So we have to borrow words from English, and we don't have such words in English. So you have to, randomly pick up some words and explain it well that the audience understands what you're saying. So these words are used in order to give the meaning. Let the audience understand the meaning. Once the meaning is conveyed, just fine, finish. Likewise, the same thing applies here. Observed object, object of appearance, object of apprehension, object of adherence. Right? These vocabulary, these concepts are there. So the concepts, once you understand it, then you be very flexible. Use these words in order to convey these concepts. Don't try to, once you know this concept, then don't try to use these words according to how you understand these words in the natural English. If you mix the two things, you will end up nowhere, right? So the point is, object of appearance. Within object of appearance, some are valid, some are not valid. You look at the same flower, there are so many objects of appearance. For example, with your eye consciousness. With your eye consciousness, your conceptual mind, different. Your sense consciousness, direct consciousness, look at the same object of flower. What appears to this eye consciousness, that is object of appearance. But for the conceptual mind, it is not true. Conceptual mind, say I close my eyes, and then the flower appears in my mind. So there's conceptual mind. So it is not that anything that comes to this conceptual mind, that should be the object of appearance. Anything that appears to the mind should not be the object of appearance. You're getting it? What appears to the the conceptual mind and the object appears to the conceptual mind, these two are not synonymous. For the direct perception, so some of you might have forgotten that. We have already explained this to the Buddhist psychology, study with Buddhist psychology. For a direct perception, whatever appears to that direct perception and the object appearance of the direct perception, these two are synonymous. Don't forget it. You're getting it? So because of that, so with the eye consciousness, you get the flower. Whatever appears to that consciousness, that becomes the object appearance. So the flower appears. So flower is a valid object. It exists. And the object existent flower appears. That is non-existent. And beautiful flower appears. That is fine. This is valid. But object existent beautiful flower also appears, and that is non-existent. That is non-existent. So there are many things of your appearances which are valid, which are existent, and many which are non-existent. So overall speaking, we say that even this eye consciousness, from the Prasangic point of view, this eye consciousness is mistaken with respect to the object of appearance. Because amongst the object of appearance, there are some which are non-existent, yet they appear to the eye consciousness. So therefore it is mistaken with those, not all objects of appearance, but with some objects of appearance. So overall, we say that the eye consciousness of the ordinary beings, they are mistaken with respect to object of appearance. Yes, Piera?
This is with a question I think Kaveri answered. I just wanted to ask you, for all schools except Prasangika, reflections are gross, all schools besides Prasangika, which are lower schools. For them, Prasangika says that they are gross afflictions.
Yes.
It's because they believe in inherent existence.
So basically, the Prasangas would say that the afflictions which the lower schools accept from the Prasanga point of view, all afflictions are gross afflictions.
Yeah.
Because the lower schools, they cannot identify the subtle afflictions which the Prasangika could identify. Why they cannot identify the subtle afflictions is because they believe in object existence. Yes, inherent existence.
Because
Yes.
in some way or the other, each school, even pertaining to the ignorance of autonomous substantial reality, that also, I know you're going to explain it later, that there is some objective existence in some way in every school.
Okay.
Even within the self, there should have like self and phenomena.
Yes. In fact, say when you view the self as autonomous substantial reality, within that there is interestingly, when you view the self as autonomous substantial reality, you are viewing the self to be objectively existent autonomous substantial reality. So within that, objective existence is mixed. Because say very pure gold and the dirt, when mixed, it becomes pure gold or dirty gold. Pure gold is inside there, yet it is overall we call it dirty gold. It's not the so subtle and the gross mixed together, it becomes gross. So although the subtle one is mixed, still we call it as a gross affliction.
Because I just this is question I think object of appearance, object of appearance with the conceptual consciousness is the generic image.
Okay.
Object of appearance for conceptual consciousness.
We have to say
Generic image.
appearance of objective existence rather than objective appearance. Right?
No,
Appearance.
I meant the object of appearance.
Object of appearance, yes.
Yeah, that's
Object of
So
appearance.
for the
Okay,
conceptual mind, that's generic
very
image.
good. Object of appearance of a conceptual mind is a generic image. Yes, very good.
So there is I know I have to revisit Buddhist psychology. So for a direct consciousness, object of appearance and object of apprehension is different, and for a conceptual consciousness, object of appearance, observed object, adherence object, which is referent object, they're all different.
Okay, so that becomes even more different.
I know.
A different meaning that, yeah.
confusing.
So let's say that for the direct sense perception, right, direct perception of your appearance and of your apprehension is different. These two are different. Then for the conceptual mind, object of appearance, object of apprehension, and object of what? Observed object,
And
object of object, observed
referent
object,
object, so
referent object.
so all
Okay,
are
so
they
the-
different from, my question was, sorry, my question was,
okay, let's put it like this. Referent object is a new word coming up,
Yeah.
used by the text here, but I do use this word referent of a label. You remember it? Okay, what we need to keep in mind is that the same, you have to know these things. Observed object. This flower is objectively real. What is observed object? The flower. Don't forget it. And then this flower is objectively real. This flower is objectively real. Okay. Right? And then I close my eyes. Right? Or this flower is objectively real. So what is the objective appearance of this mind? This conceptual mind? What is the objective appearance of this conceptual mind? What is the objective appearance of this conceptual mind? Very good, thank you. Priya was the only one who remembered the Buddhist psychology. Thank you. Right? So for the conceptual mind, minds which views a flower, which views an impermanent phenomenon like flower and so forth, right? The generic image of the flower is the only object of appearance. Whereas for the conceptual mind, viewing non-composite phenomena, for that it is not necessarily generic image. Even non-generic image can also, even the what is not generic image can also be the object of appearance. But for the conceptual mind, viewing impermanent phenomena as its primary object, only the generic image becomes the object of appearance, right? Okay, so that is generic image. Then the next one we are talking about is the object of apprehension, right? So this mind, my conceptual mind, thinking of the flower, what is the object of apprehension of the flower? What is the object of apprehension of this mind? What is the object of apprehension of this mind, conceptual mind that I have, thinking of the flower? Flower, very good. So we see that the observed object is the flower. Let's say, okay, the flower I saw earlier, that flower is a red flower. If this is how I'm mentally thinking with closed eyes. What is the observed object? This flower. What is the object of appearance? The generic image of this flower to be red flower. What is the object of apprehension? What is this mind grabbing at?
Red flower, this flower.
This flower to be red flower. That's object of apprehension. So we see that observed object, object of apprehension, object of appearance, all three are different. In the case of this particular mind, conceptual mind, seeing the flower, viewing the flower. Now, in this text, not this text, in this translation, the person used the word referent object. So he is actually referring to the object of the referent object is a very, very ambiguous. When you use the word referent object, it's a very ambiguous word. So, more precisely in Tibetan, it is shenyul. What he was referring to was the shenyul. Shenyul is the object of adherence. Object of adherence. This is what he was trying to. Okay, Lokeshna. So in other words, make sure that the point is.
So Krishna, sorry, in the flower, which is the referent object? Which is the object of adherence? with the flower.
With the flower, say, not the flower, the mind thinking of the flower to be red. In this case, the flower to be red is object of adherence. In other words, okay, let's say object of adherence, independent is schedule. This is confined. Object of adherence is confined to only conceptual minds. For non-conceptual, there is no object of adherence because adherence is a function of the conceptuality, right? And for the conceptual mind, object of adherence and object of apprehension, these two are synonymous. For the conceptual mind, object of adherence and object of apprehension, these two are synonymous. Nugeshi?
Keshila, just a few clarifications, just only two of them. We talked about self in 5 ways, and the first one, which is the permanent unitary independent self, can it be said to be a conceptualization of the self being different from the 5 aggregates?
Okay, so the first understanding of the selflessness. Selflessness is a permanent unitary independent self. So the opposite of that is conceiving the self to be permanent unitary independent. So can we equate this with seeing the person as different from the aggregates? Is the question?
Yes.
Okay. So I wouldn't say yes, I wouldn't say no. I have an answer. I wouldn't say yes, I wouldn't say no. Our job is to know what is the misconception of the self to be permanent unitary independent self. We have to know this very precisely, and we have to know very precisely how we can see the self, how we can mistake the self to be different from the aggregates. We have to know these two things so well. If you know these two things, say, what is elephant? Oh, don't worry, elephant, I have so many elephants in my pocket. I have so many elephants in my pocket, which means that person has no clue of what an elephant is. You're getting it? First, you have to understand whether the elephant can be in pocket or not. You have to know what pocket is, what your pocket is, what elephants are, right? You have to know these two things so well. Only then you will be the legitimate person to say whether the elephants can be in the pocket or not. Whereas if I say no, elephants cannot be in the pocket, you may think that, oh, maybe elephant they are like the mercury. I cannot put the mercury in my pocket. They can just go down like this, right? So therefore, the point is, it is very important for one to use your own mind, to use your intelligence, your own creativity, your own understanding, to see what does it mean by the self to be permanent, unitary, independent. What does it mean by self to be different from the aggregates? Once you understand these two things so well, and these two things is not difficult, it's easy. Easy. You know these two things well, and then you decide. Getting it? So only through this exercise you can go into a subtler version of emptiness.
So an extension of that is basically the substantial self.
Autonomous substantial self. Don't just say substantial. It's very complicated. Make it very precise.
Okay.
Same. So now the next is, what do you understand by autonomous substantial? What do you understand by something to be autonomous substantial self? Or how can we negate this? For that matter, most likelihood, the coming Thursday, we'll do the what is meant by emptiness of autonomous substantial reality. Into that, right? Yes. Okay, this is Vasila.
The first quick one, that did I hear you say just now that an observed object need not be existent? That's my first question.
Okay, good question. Let's say that, let's say this flower is a red flower. So that the observed object exists or not exists? Yes. The flower in the left hand is very beautiful. The flower in the left hand, hey, what is in my left hand? Nothing is there. Yet, wow, this flower is so beautiful. Flower in the left hand is so beautiful. What is the observed object? No, I did not ask whether it exists or not. Your hearing is there some problem. I asked what is the observed object in this case? The flower in my left hand. The flower in my left hand is the observed object. Does it exist or not? No. That's the second question. You're getting it? First question is what is the observed object of this mind which views the flower in my left hand to be beautiful. So what's the observed object? Flower in my left hand. Does it exist? No. So here the observed object may not necessarily exist.
The second question, last time, and I may have got it wrong, Ankitla gave an answer as example of emptiness of autonomous substantial reality. Misconception of autonomous substantial reality is seeing the selfhood of a mobile phone. And we had a bit of a discussion about, not selfhood, seeing the mobile phone as autonomous substantial real. Now this raised confusion for some of us because normally we associate seeing autonomous substantial real with the selflessness of person for the lower schools. And then on further discussion with Ankitla, and I may have got this wrong, and Tejala, but it appears that there could be a three-mode relationship between seeing things as autonomous substantial real and the selflessness of persons according to the lower schools.
Okay, so this is a good question. In fact, the next session is going to be more on the discussion as to what do you understand by emptiness of autonomous substantial reality, one. Then to understand this, we have to understand what is what. If things do exist as autonomous substantial reality, what that is like. To understand the emptiness of object existence, we have to identify the object negation. What do you mean by what do you mean by objective existence? Like, what do you mean by autonomous substantial reality? Next. Then still next is the lower schools. Those schools, they talk about the emptiness of autonomous substantial reality. Is it that everything is empty of autonomous substantial reality? According to lower schools, answer is no. Right? So what are the things which are empty of autonomous substantial reality? According to lower schools, what are the things which are empty of autonomous substantial reality? What are the things which actually exist as autonomous substantial reality? Real? So what are these things? These are things that we have to distinguish. And then why some are autonomous substantial real and why some are not? On what basis we classify, according to those schools, on what basis we classify some to be autonomous substantial real and some not as autonomous substantial real. On what basis we classify them? In other words, what's the definition of, say, the autonomous substantial reality? Right? With this definition, then you see whether it's applicable to this phenomena, that phenomena. So just for a clue to make a good start for the next session, so the self, according to lower schools, according to the Prasangika, nothing exists as autonomous substantial real. Nothing exists as autonomous substantial real. But things empty of being substantial real, this autonomous substantial real, this is very gross. Yet nothing exists of autonomous substantial real. Lower schools, all lower schools, except for the keep aside Prasangika, all other good schools, for them, the autonomous substantial the reality, say that the self, seeing this I as autonomous substantial reality, this is the root cause of all suffering. Yet, within the self, they classify that into two: substantial self, substantial I, and the putative I. Right? Self which is imputed. I say, I'm a girl, or I'm a boy. So boyness or the girlness, this is identified. This is done on the basis of all members of the body. The body is not the self. And then say, I'm compassionate, I'm not compassionate, I'm short-tempered, I'm patient. So whatever. So this is described on the basis of my mind. And my mind is not me. So okay. So my mind is not that my mind is not the one which is characterized with the body. The mind cannot be characterized with the body. So we see that there's a self which is imputed on the basis of the body and the mind. So that self, which is imputed on the body and the mind, that is known as the putative self. And going into this self, okay, I am a boy, I'm a girl, I'm compassionate, I'm not compassionate, I'm short-tempered, I'm patient, so whatever. So this I, all these characteristics ascribed to the body and the mind, ascribed to the self. So the self, this putative self, and then if you go to where exactly the self is, then those schools, most of them will point to the mind. This mind is the final self. So that final self, which is not conventionally accepted as a self, that they call as substantial self. Right? And then whereas this I, which conventionally the people discuss about, okay, the people treat me very unfairly, I'm very sad today. So this I, without being categorized specifically as one of the 5 aggregates. So that I is known as the putative self. So that I, they call, they identify that to be empty of autonomous substantial reality, but the self which is, you go explore this self beyond this, and you identify the mind as a self. That mind as a self, which is also known as substantial self, that exists as autonomous substantial real. But this putative self is empty of autonomous substantial real. Well, this is the starting point for the more like what? The starting point for the next class, next session. Okay, any more questions? There is a quick question here. Okay, so all these questions what is the question coming here? There are like 3. I can make it very simple. The question is more on, say seeing things as autonomous substantial real, right? Seeing things, ignorance pertaining to the autonomous substantial reality. This ignorance, whether it should be only innate, it should be only acquired, or it can be acquired as well as innate, right? Any wrong conception, can they be always? Should it always be just innate, or should it always be? Should it be always acquired, right? Okay, for the wrong conceptions, we can say, well, let's say that E equals mc cubed, mc squared, right? And I say that E equals mc cubed. Is this mistaken or a correct equation? Mistaken equation, right? It's mistaken. Is it acquired or it can be innate? It is always acquired, because naturally, if somebody naturally comes with this equals mc square, this is cube, this is amazing, right? Somebody naturally coming since birth, right? You're born, before you cry for milk, you say equals mc square, right? People will take you as a genius. So this is very unlikely. So the point is that from a very conventional point of view, when you speak about equals mc square, equals mc cube means wrong. So that is acquired. So in other words, what I'm saying is that for the misconceptions, for the wrong, distorted minds, it has always the acquired element. Acquired element is always there. This we don't have to worry, because either we deliberately make it wrong, or say we philosophically learn about those wrong things. So the acquired one is quite natural. Now the more difficult part is whether or not these mistaken thoughts can have the innate part, naturally arising part. For example, A equals mc cubed. This is a wrong equation. Is there something which can naturally come to your mind? No. Somebody has to learn about this equation. Okay, so this is not naturally acquired. But in acquired, naturally it cannot be there, but acquired, it is very possible, right? So likewise, autonomy, viewing things as autonomous substantial real. Viewing things as autonomous substantial real, can this be acquired? Of course, the philosophers, they reinforce their own belief that yes, the mind exists as autonomous substantial real, right? This is what the low philosophy schools, they reinforce that. And then can they be innate? Yes. So the viewing things as autonomous substantial real, it can be innate, that is within us, which Lama Tsongkhapa said very clearly in the text. Then seeing the self as different from the aggregates. Different from, okay, my body is male, my body is female, but I'm not female, I'm not male, right? So seeing the self as different from my body. And my body, my mind is compassionate, my mind is what? Short-tempered, but I'm not really short-tempered. Right? So seeing the self as different from the, but okay, some of you may take this excuse. You create a problem in your family and say, you're very short-tempered. No, it's my mind which is short-tempered. I'm not short-tempered. Right? You're seeing the self as different from the mind. Right? So the point is that such a could be misconception that the self to be different from your body, from your mind. Can that be acquired? Naturally. This is many of the philosophers, they adhere to this belief. What about that to be innate? Innate part is, so to check whether innate part is there or not, that is more serious question rather than to check whether it has acquired. Particularly with complicated philosophy, acquired one is always there. Acquired is more easy. Innate one is whether it innately exists or not. That is what we have to explore. Okay. So the seeing the self as different from the body and the mind, from the aggregates, this is always acquired, never innate. Right? Seeing the self as autonomous substantial reality can be innate as well as acquired. Right? And to say, particularly, well, say at this moment, to say something is innate, to acquire is easy. Whether something, some misconception, can be innate, we need some textual sources. As of now, although mentally you are very confident, still we need some textual sources to support that, this great saint scholar, a great, highly accomplished scholar, saint scholar said it. Later on, as you understand, if your knowledge is complete, if your study of emptiness is complete, then you don't have to quote. You see within yourself, you can decide whether it is innate version is there, not there, you can decide. Later on, right? Not now. Okay, so the point is that with the very sophisticated, complicated, the mistaken minds or distorted minds, acquired one is always there, it's very natural, we don't really check. But innate one, whether it exists, not exists, this is something we have to check. Okay, and for the objective, the ignorance pertaining to objective existence is always innate?
Yes.
Huh? Is always innate? Huh? Then always acquired? Both can be acquired. How can you say that acquired part is there? Ignorance pertaining to objective existence. How can you say that this ignorance pertaining to objective existence, viewing this objective existence can be acquired? How can you say that?
It's a mistaken view which can be learned.
Huh? Which can be learned. How? How?
Other views, wrong views, other traditions, and a lot of people believe in.
Okay, all the
Permanent self and
okay, all the except for Prasangika, all the Buddhist schools and in fact all other philosophers other than Prasangika, they reinforce saying that objectively existent person must be there. You're getting it? So that's acquired. And how can you say that the ignorance viewing self as objectively real can be innate? Is the innate part? Oh, how do you know that? How can you say that? How can you justify that? Anyone?
We all have it, yes, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Yes. So this self, the ignorance viewing things as objectively real, that is the basis for all suffering and samsara. The fact that we're in samsara means we all have this from not really learned from philosophy. We acquired this from past lives, right? So we have the innate. So the issue that we're raising here is the acquired part with these. But I'm not saying that all distorted minds should necessarily have the acquired part. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying that if there's an innate, the acquired part is automatically there, right? Acquired part is sometimes we can speculate. We can speculate some wrong, mistaken mind, which may not be actually. If I say that, okay, this flower is a diamond flower. It's a distorted mind. Is it acquired or is it innate? Yeah, I know that it's not a diamond flower. Still, I'm saying this. And so it's not necessary. So the point is, which people actually discuss. So these things, where there's innate, there's acquired. For the distorted minds. For the distorted minds, where there's innate, there's acquired. Whereas there's acquired, they may not be the innate part. Okay. We will stop here. We'll conclude with the direction prayer. Okay, meanwhile, what I would suggest is that during the lunch break, I'll say, please feel free to have discussion with Venerable Geshe Sonamong Chenla, right? If you want to learn anything, you want to know anything about the charity, right? Feel free to discuss with Geshe-la. So I'll request Geshe-la to be around you. So whatever questions you might. And then when you visit Nepal, you pay visit to his charity there, and you may be a part of it by teaching English to the students there, right? And teaching the Natural Masters course to them, to the young children. Right? Okay, but I'm just joking. The point is you can visit his charity there, right? So that will be wonderful. Even to make a visit is an incredibly great moral support, right? And these children, they will see you with so much love and affection, which is so precious, right? So this is what I like to encourage you. For that matter, feel free to be around him, ask questions, learn from him. Okay, page 278. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all the happiness and good. All powerful charities, the Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Hare Rave Gorbe Jenganzo, Pena Dewa Manu Chumbene, Chere Sewa Tenzin Gyatso, Jabe Zede Padu Denguroji. Just as a brave magician and some about the true realized things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. Jambala Bava Chidara Jambata, Bundo Sambo, Tean Dejinde, Dela Gunge Jason Doloji, Yawa Dela Dangerado. I dedicate all these rules of virtue with the dedication praises the best by the victorious ones thus gone forth the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the Supreme Bodhicitta that has not arisen and rise and grow, and may that which is risen not diminish but increase forevermore. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I truly remain to dispel the mysteries of the world. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may Krura attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all beings without exception into their enlightened state. I dedicate the merit thus gathered towards the realization of the deeds and the prayers of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times and to the upholding of the Dharma of teaching and realization. May I in all lives through the force of this merit never separate from the four wheels of the Mahayana vehicle and accomplish all the stages of the path, renunciation, and prodigy that perfect within the two stages. With the wish to free all beings to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate a mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the Triple Gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious within my heart. The path of union of emptiness and compassion is loosely explained by the protector of both the Dharma and the beings of the snowland. With the lotus soul that attends in Gyatso, we supplicate you that your wishes are fulfilled spontaneously. Konye Yenja Zombo Juga Chejira Satse Kanje Tenjuk Chana Bemo Denze Gyazona Soa Derzo Jendo Nunjo Sho. May the operations of evil thoughts and deeds of the negative forces of humans and non-humans who heard or managed through perverted grace against the teachings of the Buddhas be truly vanquished through the power of the truth of the rituals. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, I enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of the stations of the past. May I could attain the state of Vajradhara. Throughout my future lifetimes, may I always be guided by Ramanjishri and be able to uphold the Dharma in general and the teachings of independent origination in particular, even in the course of my life. Okay, the diploma course, the next class will happen at 3:15.